We're going live. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Happy Sunday. We are Island Time Adventures. I'm Holly.
I'm Sean.
And today we have a really interesting topic about education. And we have a really unique guest who blew our minds with a piece of information that she shared with us. But before we get into introducing her, I want to update you guys on what's been going on with us. Of course, if you've been following our journey, you know that in 2 months' time, we are moving to Thailand. Super excited. Um, and one of the biggest pieces of this puzzle for us has been figuring out what we're going to do about Sonny's education. Sonny is our 7-year-old son. He's in first grade, finishing up. And we originally thought that we would put him in virtual school. We actually did. Sonny was enrolled in Florida Flex about 4 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has not only been going to public school, but then he's been coming home and also doing Florida virtual flex classes, taking computer science and Spanish when he's not in school. And then we thought that was going to be perfect for us as we traveled abroad. But it was getting kind of tedious because he would come home from school and it's like, okay, well, we have this module due, this worksheet we've got to do, deadlines, just as if it was regular school, check-ins. I was getting text messages from his teachers who were really, really nice people. The format of Florida Virtual is really user-friendly and fun. There's cute little cartoons. So I just thought Sonny would love it. And at first, he was loving it for about a week. And then it just became tedious for him. It became overwhelming. He didn't want to sit down and do the modules because he had been in school all day. And that's really understandable, right? Like, who wants to go to school all day and then come home and instead of getting to play, or maybe getting to play for only a little bit, and he's have to sit down and do more worksheets and do more modules on top of first grade homework that he's already getting from his elementary school. So it was a lot. Mm-hmm. It was a lot. And during probably like week 2 or 3, I was at Solstice in Punta Gorda, a friend of mine's resort, her yoga resort, and I met this amazing yoga instructor who's also a mom. And we were just chatting about just getting to know each other. And I was telling her what we were getting ready to do. And she, I think, asked me, like, what are you doing for your son's education? And I talked to her about Florida Flex. And she introduced me to the concept of worldschooling or unschooling, which are two phrases that we'd heard before, kind of like in the digital nomad or traveling space, but we didn't ever really take the time to figure out what they were. And Brittany broke it down to me what unschooling is. And so she is going to break it down for you guys today to see if maybe whether you're moving abroad or thinking about moving abroad, or maybe you're not thinking about moving abroad, but just curious about what is unschooling, how does it work. She's going to talk to us about all of that today. So Brittany, first of all, can you just kind of introduce yourself and tell us who you are and a little bit about your family?
Sure. My name is Brittany, and I am a yoga instructor. I teach all ages, from children all the way up to adults. And we are a unschooling family. So we started homeschooling, and then we switched over to unschooling, and we moved to Florida last year. And I think that just over the course of the years of doing this, I have become really, really passionate about unschooling. And I've just seen the changes within our family. So it's just something that I really love to share with people. I love to share it with people because I think that it's a little bit, even if you've heard of it, you might think of that and think unschooling, and it doesn't sound like something that involves learning or schooling, but it does. So I want to try to take away all of that, all of the mystery about unschooling, and just share stories with people so that they can understand it better and maybe make that choice, that leap with their kids, because it's a wonderful thing.
So first off, what is the difference between homeschooling and unschooling? Because I think the reason we never went any further into the idea of unschooling is because in my mind I thought of it as homeschooling, and I never really wanted to be a pretend teacher, or not a pretend teacher, but I never really wanted to be the person standing over my son saying, okay, now we're going to learn this. And I created these flashcards and I have this little mini classroom set up at my house. That never appealed to me.
Mm-hmm.
And during the pandemic, when Sonny was in preschool and we were kind of forced into that situation,
Mm-hmm.
I tried to get him to do homework as type things with me. He wasn't having it.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of knew like homeschooling wasn't something that was in that sense wasn't going to work for us.
Right.
So what's the difference between homeschooling and what you're doing?
So homeschooling is typically, there's lots of different ways to do it. It's so broad. Like there's really different ways to homeschool, but a lot of times people do school at home. And children look at teachers as authority figures that are telling them to do something that they don't always want to do. And so when the parent steps into that role, it can really jeopardize the relationship between the parent and the child. So that's where there's a disconnect, because you can't just step into that role. You're already your child's parent. You can't just step into the role of teacher, because that's going to create some stuff between you. So homeschooling is typically done with like a curriculum of some sort, or like a bought curriculum, or you could piece together curriculums, workbooks, things like that, which is all fine and great. But the difference is that with unschooling, nothing is forced. There is no forcing, there is no coercion, there is no sneaking or bribing your child to get to do something. It's more about really the foundation of unschooling is the relationship. It's really just about building a strong relationship and bond with your child, and using that foundation and using trust and authenticity in your parenting and with your child, so that whatever your child may be interested in, you become the facilitator. You become the person in their life that can get them to the next step of the thing that they're interested in, say it be piano or a certain game or whatever it is. Instead of looking at it as their thing, you involve yourself. I always say unschooling is not for the lazy parent, because you have to be super involved with your child, and you have to be paying attention to them, listening to them, trusting them that they're making the right choices in their education. So unschooling is definitely child-led, but it's parent-involved as well. It's not just a free-for-all. You really have to step into that role of friend, just be your child's friend, just hang out with them, do things with them that they love. And so that's the difference. And the learning comes. It always comes. It's there. So that's really the biggest difference, is just the not forcing or coercing your child to do rigorous paperwork and tests and these types of things. So
It's interesting that you talk about how unschooling isn't for the lazy parent, because I think in my mind, when I hear the word unschooling, I think of it as a parent who's like sitting on the sofa all day, where the kids are like running around, just doing whatever they want. And it just sounds chaotic. Can you give us an example of how your kids are learning in this process?
Sure. So that's a tricky question, because with unschooling in particular, every family is different. Every family dynamic is different. Every child learns differently, learns at different like times, learns in a different way. Parents learn in a different way. So it's a tricky question, because it's always going to look different. There is no bought curriculum for unschooling. It's not a cookie cutter thing. But in my life, so like right now, my kids are so my youngest right now is into cooking. He really loves to cook. He likes to fry eggs and put all the seasonings in the cupboard on them. And So this is something that I'm just nurturing. I'm buying him some different spices so that he can learn about different spices and things. We're looking at ingredients. We're looking at recipe books. We're, Googling recipes, YouTubing recipes. We're using different tools in the kitchen. So it's like we're building upon this thing that he loves. We're building upon it, and I'm taking his lead. So, he's learning math, and the big question is math and reading, right? That's the big question. How are they going to learn to read? It comes naturally because we have to look at recipe books, and we have to look at this and this, and we have to use measuring cups, and we have to. It's almost impossible not to encounter math and reading in our lives. Like, it's literally everywhere. Prices at the grocery store when we're buying the ingredients, like, it's just impossible. So I'm just nurturing that and following his lead. So that also means if tomorrow he says, I don't like cooking eggs anymore, I don't want to try to bake muffins anymore, my job is to step back and say, okay, what should we do next? Rather than, but I bought you all these books about muffin baking, and I bought you all these things about eggs, and now I'm upset because you don't want to follow through with this thing that you love. It's really just about trusting them and following their lead, which is really hard to do because it's very deeply ingrained in us to follow a certain path or do a certain thing for a certain amount of time. So he's into that right now. My other son, he's a physical kid. He loves to, he does BMX. He races a BMX bike at the track. They ride dirt bikes. So he does a lot of physical activity, and he loves gaming. We're a big gaming family. We're a big tech family. So he loves gaming, and I feel like those two particular things, reading and math, that people seem to get nervous about. I mean, it's just constant. The reading and math stuff is constant. And I play the games with him. I have my own username. I play with him. We play as a family. Instead of saying to him, like, this is your thing, or even worse, saying this is worthless. It's just a video game. This doesn't mean anything. You're not learning anything. You're just sitting around all day. Instead of doing that, we involve ourselves and we find the value and we ask questions. Why do you like this so much? What do you like about it? Because that's also going to give us other avenues to figure out why he likes.
I think you froze up just a bit.
It and
Brittany, you're freezing up just a little bit.
how we can.
Okay, Brittany is having a little bit of a technical difficulty right now, but hopefully she's able to. Brittany,
can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Okay. I missed the last part.
I don't know what happened. Okay.
But I do like the points that you made about having to read recipe books, having to use measuring cups. I could even see how you could have an opportunity to count money at the grocery store. I don't know if your son is like our son, but our son loves to make purchases, as he calls them. I mean, well, that's what they are, but it's cute that he says, can I go make a purchase today? So, he has his own money, and we love to, he takes his money to the store. And, as he's picking out items, we say, okay, how much do you have? How much is this? Okay, well, if you buy this, do you have enough to also buy this over here? And there is a lot of learning opportunity in that. I could definitely see that. I want to shout out to H&D Abroad who joined us. And H&D has a question for us. Let me see if I can go back and find it.
Sure.
They wanted to know how do you feel about the unschooling, and maybe go back, like how did you feel when I told you I met Brittany and she blew my mind about unschooling, and here's something I think that could really work for us? Like, tell people kind of like what the process was for you.
So I want to say, ever since Sonni was like 2 years old, Sonni, anytime that I have a power tool and I'm doing some work, like Sonni had his own little, Fisher Price toy power tool set and everything. But when I'm working on a project around the house, he drops those tools to come and try and get my tools so he can work with me. Like I'm looking for my measuring tape. He's looking for the measuring. He has the measuring tape. He's trying to measure things. So as the years go on and progress, I just noticed like this kid likes to work. He likes to do everything. He loves it. So when Holly was gone over this past week, I was working on the stairs. What was he doing? Helping me. Like I'm talking measuring, cutting, everything, using the screwdrivers, pliers, everything to prep those stairs, everything. And he's just right there. So when I was home, when Sonni fell asleep, Holly sent me the video of, tell me about, oh yeah, I met this amazing person down there, Brittany. And she's like, you should watch this. And so
it was a video of the family you told me about, the Trying
Yes.
Something New family.
Yeah.
I shared one of their videos with Sean.
Yeah. So I started watching that. And the more and more I just kept sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, man, it's not rocket science. Like this kid, obviously he comes home, smashes his work. And he's just like, it's boring. It's the same repetitive thing. He's just like, I'm bored. He'd rather be doing something else. And I kind of feel like his ability to learn new things is a little bit hindered by doing this repetitive type of work. So I'm all for it. If he's going to, you see in school, they're learning about different, regions in the world and stuff like that. What better way would it be to go over there and actually be there, be on the Great Wall of China, learning about certain things? I think that is it's absolutely brilliant. And so when I told Holly as well, I felt like even when I was in school, there were some classes that I love going to. Like I remember in junior high, we had woodshop class. That was the coolest class because they had I learned how to use a saw band, all kinds of different tools and stuff. But the sucky part about it was an elective. So you only got to get that one class and you had to take all this other stuff that really I didn't want to learn that. I really didn't. So now I just fast forward now and I think about Sonni, I wouldn't want that for him. So honestly, yeah, homeschool would be the way to go. And I know he's an outdoor kid. This kid does not like to be inside. He likes to be outside. He loves to be in nature. He loves to ask questions and things. And I find that we do that quite a bit sometimes. We'll have a road trip or something. And he starts asking questions. We're like, well, let's get out Google. And he's asking Google himself and he's learning these things. So yes, I definitely think that doing this homeschool thing, I think it'll be the best thing for him. Unschool, sorry.
We don't want to confuse anybody between
yes.
the two, because we're not going to be standing over Sonni teaching.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
I will add to that at the beginning of first grade, when you have that back to school night, it starts for us, it starts before school actually starts. So I went in and spoke with the teacher and I said, my son's had 3 years of preschool. He was in kindergarten. His birthday is September 2nd. So he's one day past the cutoff point in Florida. So he's really quite advanced for to be going into first grade. And I said, can we test him for gifted? Can we possibly skip him up a grade? Because I'm concerned about him becoming a behavior problem if he's bored. Because when Sonny's bored, he gets whiny. He starts doing things to get attention. And so they said, we don't do that. They don't really do that anymore. We don't really test kids for gifted. We don't really, we don't skip kids up anymore. And then about a month or two into first grade, I get a letter one day. They decided to test Sonni for gifted. So that lets me know that something was going on in the classroom where his teacher said, okay, this mom is right. This kid should probably be doing something different, doing something more. And after the test, they decided not to go, supposedly he wasn't gifted at that time. So they didn't do anything with it. And, it's not that we think that Sonni is a prodigy in these areas of school. It's just that it's repetitive. He's doing the same things.
Right.
He's bored. He already knows all of these math problems. He already, and in the first couple months was at the end of the school, he was on level J, which is what you do at the end of first grade. He was in level J within the first few months of school. So just recently, like 2 months ago, they retested him and this time decided that he was gifted, and that I don't know what they're going to do with that. Like, it doesn't matter now because we're taking him out. But it's just interesting that we have one kid over here who's just bored to tears. And, you know, we would, if we keep going this route, he'll either become a behavior problem or he'll breeze through knowing the same, you know, just knowing basic stuff, like the same stuff that everybody else next to him is supposed to learn. And I just don't feel there's any individual talents that can shine through this level of learning. Tell us about what made you realize that unschooling was for you. You told me when we met about, I don't know if you want to share this publicly, but you talked about some behavior issues that you were noticing in one of your children and how unschooling affected that.
So, so we were pretty typical. I mean, bless you. My husband has always called me a free bird, so I already have it in me to sort of rebel against anything that's like the norm. So but we had always kind of done the typical, like we worked and we put our kids in school, and my youngest only went to preschool for a very, very short time, so he doesn't really have a concept of school. My oldest did preschool for a couple of years part-time, and then he went into kindergarten. And when he was for years, since he was probably about 3 years old, or 2.5, 3 years old, he had like all these like anger issues and like long meltdowns, like 2 hour long meltdowns, stuff that like I didn't feel like was typical, even though I was being told it was typical, like temper tantrum. And I'm like, this doesn't feel typical to me. And it ended up where like my husband and I went to parenting classes, and we took my son to therapy, and we took him to occupational therapy for sensory issues, and we took him to specialists in the city. And he was like this anomaly. Like everyone was just confused. They were like, we don't really know what the deal is. Like, it's like everything that they had used with other kids and families, we were doing all of that, and it still wasn't changing anything. And I was a certified yoga teacher at the time, kids yoga teacher, and I worked in the schools. So it's frustrating to me because I felt like I had all the knowledge and the tools to fix this, but for some reason it wasn't working. So naturally, I turned that on myself, and I was like, we're just like not great parents. We don't know what we're doing. We can't fix him. And it got to the point where I felt so disconnected from him. I felt like I didn't know who he was anymore. I felt like he hated me. I felt like our relationship just fell apart completely. And it was just really damaging to our family. It was so heartbreaking. And in the meantime, I had another little one that we were basically like pushing to the side because we had to focus so much energy on Eli to get him to where he needed to be. So it was really frustrating. And the school wouldn't work with me because they were like, he seems fine in school. And I said, because he's holding it together, because he doesn't feel safe and comfortable to be himself in school. So he's coming home and we're getting all this. I mean, it was, we had to skip dinner every night because we had to try to de-escalate him from meltdowns. He would fall asleep at the dinner table, literally with his head on the table from his emotional like turmoil. It was so, so, so sad for our family. So when the pandemic happened, we were forced to be home. And as we know, this was life-changing for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. But this for us was like, we had never even considered homeschooling ever. We never even, it was to a point where like, I didn't even really want to be around my own child because it was so stressful for me, which is awful. That's terrible. That's no way to live. So when he was home for the first few weeks, it was rough. It was rough. He had his things and stuff like that. And then I remember like somewhere along those lines with us all being home, there's like a few weeks went by, a few more weeks went by. And all of a sudden I started noticing little things with him that he was doing, like playing with his old toys that he hadn't touched in years and calling me mama again. And at this point, you have to think he's like 5, like a little over 5. like 5.5. He started holding my hand again. He started being like physically affectionate towards me again. And I was like, I just didn't even know what to make of it, because I literally felt like my little boy, my little like 2, 3-year-old boy was like back. It was like I lost him and he was back. And I saw like this sparkle in his eye again, and I saw this joy. So we were like, you're never going back to school again. Instantly, we were just like, why would we ever go back to that? Let's keep this going. And we didn't make a spreadsheet. We didn't know financially how to do it. We didn't know anything about homeschooling, unschooling. Like, we blindly made that decision based on our child is mental health, right? Like, we were focused on his mental health, and we were like, it's better. Let's roll with this. So we jumped into homeschooling. And I didn't do any of the school at home stuff because it just didn't feel right to me. But I was a little bit confused. I was like, I don't really know what we're supposed to be doing. Like, are we supposed to start on a certain day? I don't really know. And I could already tell that doing things with my kids that looked beautiful for Instagram for all the world to see wasn't going to matter. Like, all those little projects and things that people do with their beautiful school rooms and all this stuff, behind the scenes, your kid is pissed at you. You're not like, your relationship's not good, but you're posting these pictures, right? Like, social media gives us like this glamorous look at what homeschooling can look like. But behind the scenes, I know, because I lived it, it's not like that. You're forcing your kid to do something. They hate you for it. And it's like a disaster. So instantly we were like, this doesn't feel good. And I somehow stumbled across unschooling in all my research. And I instantly knew this is what we've been doing from the beginning, like you guys were just talking about. I feel like I often word it in a way where I feel like school disrupted our natural rhythm. It disrupted what we were naturally doing in our lives already with our kids, because conversations, are you kidding me? To me, conversations are probably one of the biggest pieces of unschooling. Sitting and talking with your kids about things, that's going to stick. That is going to stick. Having like Googling things together and researching and learning things together, that's going to stick. So it just felt so right to us. We were like, yep, this is what we need to do. So that's kind of how we came about unschooling. And, it's been a journey, because we've had to let go of a lot of things that are deeply ingrained in us, that are deeply, like, we have this conditioned thinking about school and about life in general. We've let go of a lot of things with our kids. And as wild and crazy as it sounds, it's really not that wild and crazy. It's actually really liberating and freeing. And yeah, so I hope that answered your question.
It definitely does. I love the comment that H&D Abroad have said, moving abroad works so well with unschooling because you have more time to invest into unschooling because we're going to be traveling, and you have fewer distractions for parents who want to commit to this process. Mm-hmm. I think too that it would just work really well. Like, I already can see how it will work well for us because we're not tethered to a laptop mm-hmm. and text messages if we were to go like if we were to go the virtual route. Mm-hmm. I already was starting to get fatigued from the biweekly or the weekly, twice a week check-ins from the teachers. Don't forget tonight this is due. And, even during spring break when Sonny's grandparents were visiting, we had modules due, we had worksheets due, we had teachers texting us. And, that
it's exhausting.
That's not what we're looking for. We're not looking to get out of school and then still feel obligated to be on the computer all the time. And we spent a lot of money printing out all of these worksheets. We went to like Kinko's printing out. I think we spent like $40 or $50 just on the first week printing out all the worksheets for the first couple of weeks. And we're like, we don't want to be, Sean's getting ready to embark on this scuba diving instructor adventure. We don't want to be on a boat and me thinking about, I've got to find a printer in Thailand so I can print out these worksheets. That just sounds crazy when my kid could learn so much just being on a boat. Sonny loves the ocean, loves the ocean animals. We take him to the Florida Aquarium where Sean is a volunteer diver, and Sonny and I go all the time. Like we go every couple of weeks to the aquarium. He can name so many different types of fish. When we were in the Bahamas, we found this little secret beach and we were picking up shells and stuff. And all of a sudden Sonny's like, hey, there's an anemone. And I was like, no. And then I was like, well, he would know what an anemone is. He's touched them at the aquarium. He's learned about them. So we go over and sure enough, Sonny had spotted an anemone. Is he going to learn that at school? Maybe. Is it going to stick? Definitely not in the same way. So, I think that's another win, I guess, towards unschooling is that, it really seems like you have the time to nurture what your kid is into and to even find out what your kid is into.
Yeah, a lot of that space, space makes people uncomfortable. That's why, like, when I teach yoga and everyone wants to slip out before Shavasana, and I'm like, no, this is where you integrate. This is the most important part of the class. So I actually compare it all the time to Shavasana. I feel like my kids they have so much space to integrate, to get to know themselves, to absorb things in a way that feels like just more expansive than, well, now I'm done with that test, so what else are we gonna, like, we have to move on now. Like, just letting them sit in it and settle in it, and they are bored sometimes. It's great to be bored. Like, those are the times I come up with my best ideas, is when I'm just sitting around thinking of stuff. So I just think, that space and that time to just let kids just roll with it and enjoy themselves. Like, I always think of it as, like, don't they want to have, like, just give them the most sparkly, joyful, and it doesn't have to be expensive. They'll get that from, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot for them to get that sparkly joy in their life. And when I see kids go to school and drag their big backpacks and they're just at school, it's like this thing where I'm just like, where is the sparkle? Where is the joy? Like, that's not the kind of, I didn't like school. And I'm clearly a pretty sparkly, joyful person, but I feel like it really suppressed that in me. And it took me a long time to, like, find that within myself again. So I love that. Being at the beach, touching the water, touching the sand, touching the anemone, nothing will beat that. Nothing can beat that. That's where it's at. That's the real stuff.
And it sticks, he remembers what he gets to do. And I mean, there's so many different modalities of learning. Like, I'm a visual learner. I can read well. If you give me an instruction booklet on how to do something, I can read it and figure out what I'm supposed to do. But man, if I have a video or someone next to me showing me how to do it, it sticks.
Right.
And I just feel like with traditional schooling, you don't get to explore very many different types of the different ways that there are to learn something, the hands-on experience.
Right.
Going to my questions to see what other questions. And if you guys who are watching us live have any questions, please feel free to drop those in the comments. HMD Abroad says, I'm so excited to see families of boys and neurodivergent kids consider unschooling. As early as possible, we want to fall in love with learning and stay curious about the world. Absolutely. That's the goal, right? Like, what could the world look like if we all were able to dive into the things that interested us as kids and that we got to pursue them so fiercely that we're able to see them through and make a living? What if everyone was making a living doing what they truly loved and truly good at? Right? Sean and I were talking about the other night about how many years does it take to get a doctorate degree? Let's see, it's 4 for a bachelor's, 2 more for master's. Is it maybe like a total of 8 years of schooling for a doctorate degree? But if you're 8 years old and you have a violin and you study that violin for 8 years, at the time that you're 16 years old, do you not have doctorate level experience?
Right.
And what can that do for you as a 16-year-old kid? Like, where would that take you in the world? How would that affect your self-esteem? To be an expert at something or to have mastered after something so deeply that you can hold your head up with confidence, knowing that you're thriving in what you enjoy doing.
Right. And feeling like the people that, like the adults in our lives are usually the people that we're looking to for safety and for comfort and so if the adults in your life are not valuing, like the violin is something that you're just doing after school, or it's only something you can fit in on the weekend, that to me is a direct, like, this isn't valuable enough to take up all of your time. It's just an extra thing on the side. And in turn, that is what the child is going to start to believe. Like, this is not valuable enough for me to spend my time because I have to go get a real job. And that's not, that's why we live in the world we live in, where people are at their 9-to-5s that they hate for 40 years.
And I think the favorite things were the electives. All the cool stuff for the electives. I wanted to take 3D Studio Max in high school, but it wasn't available for some reason. I ended up taking drafting. But all the cool stuff are the electives. It's not fair. It should be the other way around.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember when Sean and I first got together, we had a long distance relationship because he was in California, I was in Little Rock. And the cool thing about it is that because we had that space, that physical space, we were really able to ask each other all the important questions. And we would talk about, what do we want our lives to look like if we were to get married? What do we want to do with our children? And how would we teach our children? And I remember telling Sean, I don't want to send my kids to public school and that I don't want to send my kid to college. And what do you think about that? And, I remember saying, if my kid had an interest in architecture, I would rather see them go into that trade. And then I would go to Italy. If my kid had an opportunity to study under some successful architect and that was an opportunity, why not? I would rather that. I think it would be more affordable than taking out the 50,000 plus student loans and for a kid who doesn't really know what they want yet. How many of us are actually using our degree or our first degree, right? But yet are still saddled with these debts in these formative years. When you're 18 years old, if you haven't had a chance to dive deep into what you're really into, then how are you expected to go into college and really know who you are and what it is that you want to do? Versus I could maybe see, like, if we go back to the idea of like the violinist at 16, they may know that they want to go travel the world with an orchestra, or they may have an opportunity already, or they may want to earn a doctorate in music. And they would probably know. I would feel much safer investing in a college education for my kid who has studied something for 8 years and shown me for 8 years that this is their passion. Absolutely. I'm throwing all the dollars behind it. Than a kid who has had to kind of like do a little bit of everything, but spend no real time on anything that they're really into. And now all of a sudden you go to college and you figure out who you are and what you want to do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I always, people are 18 years old and you've been told when to eat and use the bathroom your whole life. I mean, how are you going to make adult choices on, it's kind of strange. It's really kind of strange when you really think about like, you haven't even been able to make a huge life decision on where you want to go to college for 4 years. And then that has to be your job forever. Like, it's just it's really odd if you think about it. Like, we're doing things very backwards. And I also want to say, like, with the violin and things like that, and I think too, like with unschooling, it's like that kid might do violin for 2 years, but then they might say, I kind of want to try piano, so there's also that space of just like trying different things and having the space to be like, I'm going to try this now. And that kid might be interested in music for a really long time and then get to be 16 and say, I want to produce music. How do I do that? Can I get myself, like, there's always like these different avenues that they can take. And when you give them the space and you trust them and you show them that you trust them and you facilitate this for them, it's like the possibilities are endless because they have that confidence of, I know what I'm doing. I know what feels right in my gut. I know what my intuition is telling me, and the adult figures in my life think so too, and so now I'm going to pursue them. So it's interesting because they can hop around, but that's the journey. It's part of the journey of them getting to know themselves as people,
I feel like that's kind of a luxury that many of us don't even have ourselves, right? We get into this certain type of career because either, that's what our degree is in, or that's what we feel people expect from us. And we suppress our own, goals and dreams. And, a perfect example is Sean. And our interests change, but Sean has been really interested in scuba diving for a couple of years. But, for in our society, it's kind of like, especially I think for men, it's like you go to work, you do the job that pays you, you provide for your family, and don't worry about what you want. It's not about what you want. It's about being a man is about providing for your family. And I feel like there's no space there when you're getting up and you're working a 9 to 5 every day. There's no space there to even think about, what do I actually want to do with my life? Like, what could I be good at if I pursued it? Like, what other things are out there for me to do? What are my interests? So I'm just so happy to see that Sean is setting this example for Sonni.
Right. Yep. And those big, scary, like I always tell my kids, like when you feel butterflies in your stomach and you're a little bit nervous, God, that's good. That's good. I'm like, you got to just go with that, because those are if you feel so comfortable and sleepy in what you're doing, it's likely not igniting anything in you. It's likely you're not following your passion. I feel scared all the time in my work and in the things that I do. I always feel scared in a good way, in a way that feels like I'm living right now. I'm making decisions based on like, the exciting next step, not like, ooh, we got to stay here because it's comfortable and it's too scary out there in the world. So I think it's great to show that example. Like, it's okay to take chances, and I always just jump. I just say yes, and then I figure out the rest along the way.
Absolutely. I love it. I love living this way.
Yeah.
What do you know about, like, is homeschool legal everywhere, or unschooling? Is that legal? How do we start unschooling, especially in Florida, since we're in Florida, and I know
Yeah.
I know you know what.
Great question.
Yes, help us get started. We don't want to break any laws, and I don't want like anyone knocking at my door.
Okay, so the basics about homeschooling is homeschooling is legal in all in the United States, in all 50 states. Homeschooling is legal, so there's no worry there with anything illegal. It is illegal in some countries. Some countries. There's lists online. I think there's some in Africa, Asia, Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean. I wrote this down this morning. There are a few places where homeschooling is illegal, which is strange and sad to even think about, that people don't have that control. But in the United States, it is legal, and in many, many other places, it's legal. So when you're unschooling, you're not registering as an unschooler. You don't need to tell anybody that you're unschooling. You are registered as a homeschooler. So in most states, I believe, to my knowledge, the choice is most of the time to either register with the district, which means tell your school district, I'm withdrawing my child from school and registering as a homeschooler. And every state has different levels of like what they want and need from people, but none of them are scary. They really are not. Evaluations are not what people think they are. They're very, very relaxed. A couple of the states, I think New York is one of them, does testing every year. So this is where people get a little bit nervous, but I think that, so first of all, homeschooling is legal in all the states. So as long as you're registered as a homeschooler and you have residency in the United States, and you can continue to have residency in the United States when you're living abroad, then you're all set. You just have to do whatever the little evaluation every year or whatever. I lived in Rhode Island before. We didn't have to do anything. We sent a letter that said, I'm homeschooling. See you later. And then at the end of the year, we sent a letter saying, I did it. And then we just did the same thing every year. So it was very, very easy and relaxed. So that stuff it's legal here. And as long as you have residency, now having residency outside the country is a little bit different. And so there are umbrella schools and private schools for that. So one that we are registered, there's one that we're registered under that's called Bridge Academy. And it's like a couple $100s per kid for the year. And that's the way to do it if you're living abroad and you don't have residency in the United States, is to use some type of private school. There are differences. And the other thing in Florida is the umbrella school. So there's Florida Unschoolers is one of the umbrella schools, and there's other ones, but these are all private schools, basically. They're private schools. The only disadvantage to that is that your child will not get to play sports with the school teams or participate with school things in the district because they're considered private schoolers, and then they will not get scholarships to college, neither of which I think most unschoolers are concerned with. So it's not really a huge deal if you're considered a private school student. So that's the basic way to do it, is either register with the district or with a private school. And all the paperwork and stuff, it's all just fluff. There's really not a lot that you have to actually do. As far as like proof, like most of the time they want to see that your child made progress somewhere. And it's impossible over the course of a year for a child not to make progress somewhere. So some people have Instagram pages that are dedicated to their schooling, and they just show them that and say, see all the things we did? See, we went to the Great Wall of China. We did it. We unschooled. So so it's pretty easy to register. It's not that hard with the evaluations and stuff to prove. There's lots of unschooling friendly evaluators too. So there's a lot of people that are really on board with life learning. And I think it's very important for everyone to read up on their rights as homeschoolers. Very important. We have a right to homeschool our children. We do not have to disclose every little thing that we do with our children. In fact, when we take that step further and we give too much information to the districts and to the state, it hurts us and it hurts our rights as homeschoolers. So it's very important to keep our feet planted in, this is my child, and this is the way that we are doing home education, and I'm going to give you as little information as possible, only what's needed, because it's really hurtful when people give too much information about how they're schooling. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Brittany, for coming on, sharing your experience with us. We definitely would like to stay connected with you. Can you tell us and the viewers where we can find you online and stay connected?
Yes. So I just started a blog called journeytounlearn.com. And this is where I'll be sharing a lot of my stories. I like to just share stories. I'm a writer, so I like to share stories about our lives as unschoolers, as homeschoolers, and just as I like to share stories about how unschooling has really kind of inspired my husband and I to unlife, and to kind of let go of the imaginary parameters that we've been given, and how we're supposed to live in a box. And unschooling has really inspired us as a family. So it's not just about the kids. It's really about our family as a whole. And so journeytounlearn.com is the website. I will continue to update the blog with any kind of, new stories. And then there is an email address on there, which is brittany@learningtounlearn.com, journeytounlearn.com. And so if anybody wants to chat with me or ask me questions or reach out to me, can definitely find me on there. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has about unschooling.
Nice. I would love to see you offer some type of little course on the first steps to getting started. So I'm just throwing that content idea.
Okay.
I would love to take your mini mastermind. Nothing like too crazy and formal, but I would love to take your mini mastermind on like the first 3 things that we should do to get started.
Yes. And this is this unschooling has really taught me that as an adult, I am just learning every day, all the time, like just so much. There's so much to learn. And I've realized how much I love learning. And I'm sad that I didn't have that when I was a kid. Like I kind of lost it for a while. So I love when people like you come into my life and poke me and say, hey, you should try this too. You should do this. And I get really excited about trying new things that might scare me a little bit because it's a step in the right direction. So I really appreciate you having me on here. It means so much to me to be able to share the story of unschooling with everybody.
Yeah, I feel really grateful that we ran into each other. I have said this before on our YouTube video. We really have had some amazing synchronicities lately with the type of people that we're meeting.
Mhm.
Everyone we're meeting, ever since we announced that we were moving to Thailand, everyone that we're meeting is just really aligned. And it's just like you were sent to us. I know you were sent to us to give us this beautiful gift, this freedom.
Mhm.
This is why we're moving. We're moving for more freedom.
Right.
You know, I feel like in the United States, we're so conditioned to this rat race that
Mhm.
I didn't even really think that I was conditioned about my son's education. I just kind of fell into this pattern, you know, it's going from like parents who said, no, we're not going to send our kid to school. And then we did.
Right.
And now he's like 4 years into public school
Mhm.
as a first grader. And it's just like, well, that's what everybody's doing. This is the only way we can do it. I didn't even really, besides homeschooling, I didn't really even know there was another way. So I'm just so excited that you've helped us figure out this piece of the puzzle that's
Mhm.
given us so much more free time as a family to get to do what we enjoy.
Right.
And I just really think that Sonni is going to thrive as a world schooling kid.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Brittany. You guys don't forget to go find Journey to Unlearn.
Mhm.
Check out journeytounlearn.com for all of Brittany's amazing content on unschooling. And she's also an incredible yoga instructor, and her yoga company is Peaceful Dragonfly.
Peaceful Dragonfly Yoga. Yep, Peaceful Dragonfly Yoga. So you can find me on there too. PeacefulDragonflyYoga.com is the website for that.
We're also encouraging Brittany to start her own YouTube yoga channel because she teaches yoga in some very beautiful places. And I would love to stay connected that way by doing yoga with you watching you on YouTube. So thanks a lot. And Sean, do you have anything to add before we hop off of here?
No, it's been a pleasure doing this whole live stream thing, StreamYard. It's been cool. Very good information, and it's just more a, you know, what's the word I want to say? It just doors open, green light, we're good to go.
Yeah.
You know, unschooling, let's go.
Great. I'm so excited for you guys. I can't wait to see all the adventures you go on with your son, and I think it's going to be great.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Brittany, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. You also.
We'll be looking forward to seeing what you have on your blog coming up.
All right.
Thank you.
You're
All right,
welcome.
everyone. Happy Sunday. Everyone enjoy your weekend. I hope the weather is wonderful wherever you're at. It's wonderful here in Tampa. So we're going to get out and go enjoy this time together as a family. We hope this conversation has helped some of you who have been thinking about moving abroad and needed to figure out the education piece. Hopefully this gives you another option. Hopefully this is shed some light on what unschooling and world schooling is and giving you some more options as a family. Thank you so much. See you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye.